you couldn't see how far it was. That was the worst part. So you're holding on to this rope, waiting to hit the ground, not able to see it. You normally have a chem light at the bottom so you can see where the ground is. You couldn't see it. So you're coming down this rope and you're just speeding up. And you can't slow it down. Your hands and feet on this rope, and you're just sliding and holding on for dear life. And it's heating up. You're speeding up, and next thing you know, you're in a pile of Rangers at the bottom.
Rolling. Let's do this.
Yeah.
I got a red light.
Yeah, red lights all. We've done it before. Wouldn't say that we've never recorded 30 minutes of a podcast before and then realized that something wasn't on, but we have definitely done it.
I did an 1.5-hour podcast, and they're like, we're going to have to just reschedule it because we didn't record.
Shoot.
Yeah, I've done one where like my mic was off or somebody's mic was off. That
Yeah.
was embarrassing. Entire podcast, and like you hear
One
Oh,
person.
yeah. I had to take your audio off the camera audio and crank it all the way up and then like
And it's
denoise it. And,
Yeah.
and I still really quiet in the background. But anyway, yeah.
But anyways, we're recording now. Everything is good, so hopefully you're hearing this loud and clear. This is Ike. This is the Big Text Ordinance Podcast. We have Chris, we have Ian, and our guest today is Dr. Tony Brooks.
Thanks for having me. I'm ready.
Thanks
do it.
Thanks for coming in a month before Veterans Day for our special Veterans Day episode.
Oh, interesting.
So we timed it. Every year we've done a special Veterans Day
This will be
episode
what,
of some sort.
episode 104?
Don't get me lying.
Yes.
99 is today, or 99 is this week. 100 is next week. However that math works out.
Yeah,
I don't know.
100 something.
100 something. Yeah.
Triple digits.
Yeah, but thanks. How was it? I think I figured out you were my neighbor. You posted, I think you posted your book in a group about some, maybe it was like the Wood Force business or something, but you'd post the book. I was like, well, that is exactly what my topic currently is, because I was reading what you're reading now, Alone at Dawn, as we had gotten into that whole storyline from watching that episode of the Anti-Hero podcast. And I saw your book, and I don't think I read it. I think I'll listen to it because I do the audiobooks. If I start reading, I go to sleep. I'm out. Doesn't matter what it is. If I read, I'm done. But really, really interesting story. And we'll get into all of that. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Start wherever you want to,
Yeah.
like how your parents met, whatever you want to do, and how you got there. And
Yeah, so I mean, this part of my life probably should have never happened. In fact, I don't think it would have if it weren't for 9/11. Like a lot of veterans. I was at University of Arizona. I think that month I was a business major. The month before I was something else, and the month after I was something else. But 9/11 shook me up when I was in college. It happened. Gosh, I was only there for 3 weeks. I was away from home. I was young and dumb, and 9/11 really made me look at myself and say, should I be here, or should I be doing something else? And I think I called my dad within hours of it happening, and I said, Dad, I don't know that college is the right place for me. And he, of course, did not like to hear that. He was paying for, I think, housing. And he said, well, why don't you wait till the end of the year and then make a decision, so you have time to think about it. I already made up my mind. I was a stubborn 18-year-old, but I did. I waited till the end of the year, and I said, the year ended, and I said, I think I'm going to join the military. And, of course, he tried to delay it again. He said, well, why don't you just do one more semester? And it just so it turns out I went to the recruiter, and I was adamant on what I wanted. I wanted to be an Airborne Ranger. That's it. I want nothing else. And they tried to talk me into all the other jobs like all recruiters do. And the first ship date for an Airborne Ranger at the time was called an Option 40. That contract wasn't available till February of the next year. So I had like almost a full year to try to fill. So I did school in the meantime. And shipped out in February of '04. So it took me a couple years to actually get shipped out. But I was following Pat Tillman. I think everyone was inspired by his story. Black Hawk Down, I think, came out October of 2001, right after 9/11. So we all had exposure to that pretty awesome story. And I don't know. It was, like I said, it was a chapter that I don't think would have happened without 9/11.
Because where did you grow up?
I grew up in Northern California, right outside Sacramento.
Okay.
And was anybody in your family or anybody you knew military or?
Both of my grandfathers were in the Navy, and they didn't really push it on us at all. They just kind of had their stuff shadow box on the wall, and they'd talk about it very rarely. My mother's father served in the Korean War, and he wouldn't talk about the Korean War. So pretty typical of veterans, right?
Yeah.
But that was part of the inspiration to actually write this thing. Was I didn't know his story at all when he died. Someone asked me what he did. I didn't even know his job. And that was kind of embarrassing for me. So my kids will know exactly what I did. And that's why I started writing that thing.
And why specifically Airborne Ranger? What made you select?
I don't know. I think like growing up, my brother used to always he was the weirdo that would watch the History Channel every day. And he always told me he was going to be an Airborne Ranger. So I think that was kind of the seed. And then Black Hawk Down, Pat Tillman, it's kind of all added up.
Did he become an Airborne Ranger, your brother?
My brother actually followed me a couple of months after I finished basic training. He shipped to basic training.
Okay.
He had to get a waiver because he actually had a shoulder surgery. And he got in. He got the contract. He was in his last week of basic training. And they'd already completed everything. They were done. And they were mouthing off to their drill sergeant and had to do push-ups. And he dropped down to do push-ups, and his shoulder went. And then they medically discharged because you did not complete initial training. We can't take you. You're a liability. So he was pretty devastated by that.
Damn.
How long did it take him to get him out from that point?
It didn't take long.
Didn't take long?
No, they're like, you need surgery. You got to get out of here.
Good. Good. Yeah, I was platoon sergeant for the medboard company right before I got out my last year as a drill sergeant. Like that was my job, was basically taking kids and making sure that they got everything that they were supposed to and out the door as fast as possible. And some of those kids were there for months and months and months and just like the worst holding pattern ever because they knew they were going to get kicked out, but they didn't know how well the military was going to take care of them. Because, I mean, they got injured in training. It wasn't their problem or wasn't their fault that it happened.
They kind of pushed him out pretty fast. I mean, I think it was less than 30 days, and he was out of there.
I guess Benning don't mess around.
Yeah, they did not. They got him out quick.
So once you got done with training or with your OSA, one station unit training at Benning, where did you go from there?
I went straight to Airborne school, and that was like a party. I don't know if you did Airborne school, no?
Mm-mm. Did not.
You're not crazy enough?
No, I'm good.
Or dumb enough?
That's why I don't have that significant of back problems.
That's correct. So straight to Airborne training, which honestly was fun. We had a lot of fun. We got weekends off, and of course, you know what infantry guys do on weekends.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a break right before we went to Ranger Indoctrination program, which was a wake-up call, I think, for all of us. They send you right down the road after 4 weeks of Airborne school, and we were in a kind of a holding pattern. It was so full at the time because everyone wanted to be a Ranger at the time that they had, the Ranger Indoctrination program, and they had a holding company where you would wait until your slot opened up. And I will tell you, the holding company was worse than RIP. They wanted to weed out as many people as possible before they got into RIP. So we were there for a month of basically 2 months of RIP is what it turned into. So I don't know how much your viewers know or you guys know about RIP, but it's basically a smoke fest at the time. It was 4 weeks of We're just going to try and make you quit. Mentally, physically, we're going to do everything in our power to make you rethink your decision. And a lot of us were just too stubborn to quit. And that's the only reason. I wouldn't say I was physically or mentally superior to the guys that did quit. I was just too stubborn to quit. And that's why I ended up in battalion.
And didn't you catch pneumonia at RIP?
In the hold company, I had pneumonia. It was awful.
Nothing like can't being able to breathe and getting the shit smoked out of you for
it was bad.
2 months.
I there were times when we were getting smoked when I said I'm probably gonna die.
But you're not gonna quit. You'll just die.
I'd rather die.
Yeah.
At least they say he died.
Yeah.
But my buddies actually drove me off base like 45 minutes away because we knew you can't go close to base. They all talk to each other. So we went way out in Alabama to an urgent care. And the doctor thought we were insane. He goes, I know you guys are in the military. I'm going to give you the medication, but you need to report this to your first sergeant.
Yes,
We'll
sir.
do that.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll do that. I just took the medication, and thankfully, by the time RIP started, I had mostly felt better. But yeah, there was like 3 weeks there that I was not in good shape.
Yeah. I had a buddy that he literally died on the PT test at Ranger School to get into Ranger School. I mean, they brought him back, but he, his heart stopped. They brought him back, and he's like, "Well, I guess I'm done." They're like, "Yeah, you're done." But at least he didn't quit. He died, but went on to
So that gives new meaning to the "Did you die?"
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I did. I actually did die.
And
Literally.
he just retired a few months ago from the military. I mean, that
Wow.
dude did 20 something years.
So not only did he die, but he's also retired.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Check the block.
What ribbon do you get for that?
I don't think you get a ribbon. You don't get a Ranger tab.
Yes. That's the one ribbon you don't get.
Yeah, that's what you do not get.
It's a pretty cool story, though.
Yeah.
Went to Ranger School and died, and didn't get my tab, but I did die.
Good dude.
So how long did you end up being in?
I served my 4 years active duty and then went to the California National Guard and did 3 years there. After 4 years, I was pretty beat up, actually. I look at guys that serve the 20 years in Ranger Regiment. I'm like, they're freaks. I know how mentally, physically you can do that to yourself. I was beat down. I had pain going down my legs, numbness. I still have numbness in my toes to this day. It was not fun.
That was kind of how when you posted about your book, and how you hover over somebody's name on Facebook and it shows your mutual friends, and it was Chris Sizelove and I can't
Maz?
No, he's a freaking Ranger legend, and I can't even think of his name now. Little short Hispanic guy, Jose Gordon.
Oh, Jose Gordon, yeah.
Yeah. Our mutual friends were those two. I was like, okay, that's interesting. Let me check this guy out. Yeah, those dudes did. I mean, Jose did. I don't even know how long in Ranger Regiment. Dude
He just retired maybe like, 2-3 years ago?
I think it was longer than that.
Oh,
But
seems like.
I mean, dude jumped into Panama, secured airfield in Panama.
I'll tell you, the Panamanian guys that jumped into Panama, we all, even though a lot of our guys have been on 5 or 6 deployments, they're like, the Panama guys, those guys are legit. Don't mess with the Panama guys. Those were the hardcore Rangers.
Totally different.
Very different.
Totally different. So let's get into. Did you go to Ranger School before you went to Afghanistan?
No, I was pretty cherry private at the time. So I was one of the most cherry guys in my platoon at the time. It's my first deployment. I was I was as cherry as I could be on a deployment. So I had done a full training cycle, which in regiment was 6 months ish. And I mean, I was ready for a deployment. They trained us up really well, but I didn't know what to expect. You have all your thoughts on what war is going to be, and you get there and it's nothing like it.
So what were y'all doing on it? Go ahead.
This is like in 04?
Yeah, so this was 2005
Okay.
when we shipped out to Afghanistan.
So you'd only been in active
Little over a year.
Little over a year, shipped out to Afghanistan. And what were y'all doing on a daily basis? What were y'all there for?
So at the time in Afghanistan, I guess the war really wasn't mainstream, so people didn't really know what was going on, but it was actually a slow time. It almost seemed like the war was winding down at the time.
Yeah.
And they were trying not to use Rangers very much at the time because we were the heavy hitters. We go in and we mess everything up. So they would hold us back a lot, and we did a lot of training. We actually didn't go outside the wire other than to train until this mission occurred. We had one other mission, but it was like only senior guys, tier 1 assets, and they were just doing like a targeted raid. And I actually got left behind on that mission because it was only, like I said, only team leaders and above that went on that mission. But we were not busy. More training. Every single day we were training, working out, playing video games.
Yep.
We were on night schedule, so we're up all night, and we'd sleep during the day, / play video games, sleep, work out. It was probably the slowest deployment, I think one of the slowest ever for the 75th Ranger Regiment until this happened. And then it changed really quick.
So do you want to go into a little bit of the backstory about Red Wings, or do you want to go into what you were doing specifically? How do you want to talk about that?
I think it makes sense to talk a little bit about Red Wings in case someone hasn't heard of it. But Operation Red Wings was a reconnaissance mission where a team of Navy SEALs went to recon a specific target in Afghanistan. He was a known bomb maker in the area. He was kind of a mid to low level target, so he wasn't super important to the global war, but in the area he was a pretty prominent figure, Ahmad Shah. And so these SEALs were going to go recon him to give more information for follow-on missions. And this is a mission that had been turned down by literally every asset you could imagine because they're like, he's not important enough.
Yeah.
And being that it was slow, I believe what happened was SEALs were biting, they were chomping at the bit to go do something. So this mission came down, and heck yeah, they want to go. Understandable. I think if it was offered to my company, they probably would have said yes as well, even though it wasn't high priority. It was kind of hastily planned. It was the Korengal Valley, and it was one of the hottest, most dangerous areas in Afghanistan. So in theory, they should have had a lot more support than they did going in. And they got compromised almost immediately when they got on the ground. Once they were compromised, they were ambushed shortly thereafter, and everyone was killed. No one in the rear or in command knew this. All they knew was they were ambushed, and they were sending in a QRF. And the QRF came in hot like they normally do, and it was a Chinook. There were 16 men on board. There were 8 special operation aviators and 8 Navy SEALs. It appeared that RPG had clipped we don't really know where it hit, but it looked like it may have gone straight in the back of the Chinook. And it completely disabled the Chinook, and it crashed. That's when we got spun up. So that's when they called us to say, hey, we got a Chinook down, we got some SEALs that are under contact, and we need you guys to go in. Of course, on a Chinook.
Yeah, because y'all had been trained up to do that specific role, the search and rescue,
which
right?
is pretty wild because that's normally not our deal.
Okay.
But because we had been so bored, we actually had trained on a helicopter recovery not even a month prior. We had some PJs and some combat controllers, and they said, hey, let's practice Chinook recoveries. You guys are going to be the QRF here soon, so let's just dry run it. And we did. We talked through it. We walked through it. We practiced with the tools. It's pretty wild that less than a month later, that's exactly what we would end up doing. So we were, although surprised that it happened, and we didn't expect it to be a 160th helicopter. That's the last one you expect to get shot down. But as soon as we heard that, we were spun up to come in and recover / save everybody. We didn't know if anyone was alive or dead. We did have assets that were viewing the crash site, and they could see movement, but they didn't know if that was enemy or if that was friendly. And I'll never forget when they told us, yeah, you guys are going to be taking Chinooks to the Chinook crash site. What? Doesn't sound smart. But that's what we did.
And at this point, I mean, you're private, so like you're only getting select information that is dwindling down to you.
Nothing.
Through, yeah, like me, get your backpack, get on the truck, right?
Helicopter down, get your gear ready.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what I'd heard. Yeah. So everything that I say on a higher level, I had to learn it after the fact.
Right, because you did interview a bunch of people for this.
I interviewed a bunch of people.
That's cool.
Yeah. That was fun, actually, to call your old buddies and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to ask you some questions about that day. If you remember, great. If you don't, just say you don't. If you have notes, I'd love to see them. I had written down notes the whole time. No idea what I was doing. I was just trying to fill gaps of time.
Yeah.
So I would make little notes, kind of cryptic notes, obviously, in case it got in the hands of the enemy. But I still have them, and I looked at them the other day, and it was chicken scratch. But the timeline of events was there. If you had been there, you'd be like, oh, yeah, I remember that.
So how long from the Warno to like getting on the bird was it? Like how long did y'all have to get ready, and what'd y'all grab?
The Warno came out, and we had instantly started packing for the mission. I think we left less than an hour later. There was some bad weather in the mountains at the time, so they're like, you gotta move. These guys are out there. Got us on the birds, which seemed like forever, but it was probably only an hour. And once we were on the birds and we lifted off, we had a 40-minute flight to where we were headed. And you could see, you were looking out the back of the Chinook, you could see the weather. It was bad. And they, probably 15 minutes from target, they pulled the Chinook because the weather was too bad. So we ended up, I believe at J-Bad, just waiting. And we actually had to wait through the night until the next cycle of darkness, which was, in hindsight, all of us were pissed. I mean, we're like, get us out there. We know guys are out there alive. No, none of these guys quit. So it took a whole nother cycle of darkness before they put us out there. It's wild. You would think that you'd want to get the guys out there no matter what, but it was that the weather was that bad.
And was it that bad on station where the Chinook crashed? So do you think they couldn't get, surveillance on it to make sure that, it was 2008, so they still had good assets. So they could have seen the crash site, but
they definitely saw the crash site, and we had kind of satellite imagery of it. But the weather was so bad that the assets weren't doing any good at that point.
Okay.
So they said we just got to wait.
So chilled out, slept, hydrated.
Yeah, there was no sleep.
I was gonna say there probably wasn't much sleep.
No, there was no sleeping because we were expecting to get spun up at any minute.
Yeah.
We thought we were going to go during the day, and then finally they pushed it through the day. They said, hey, we're not going to send you guys out there during the day. We don't know how many guys they got out there.
And at this point, had they told y'all anything about the Navy SEALs that are the SEAL team, the recon unit?
Just that they were out there.
Nothing
we didn't even
else.
know they were ambushed, at least at my level. We had no idea.
So going in, you just basically knew that there was a recon team out there. They crashed, got ambushed, and there might be some survivors out there, and that's basically all the info you had.
Yeah, so
more or less.
my specific task was recovery of the Chinook. So we were really focused on that. I would assume that there was another element that was tasked with specifically finding the SEALs, or they could have lumped it together. I was unable to verify if there was anyone specifically assigned to them, because I think, as you know, the military really focuses on the high-level assets first, which is the Chinook and all the computers and all the gear associated with the 16 guys on board. So they were really focused on that.
I could be wrong, but I think Chuck was over there at the same time, and they were spun up, and they were walking in from a different location.
Yeah. There was another walk. Yeah. So there was another element, which was Bravo Company of 275, which is the Ranger Regiment, that did walk in. They walked in with some Tier 1 assets, and it was the absolute most nightmarish walk to this crash site. Now, we landed about 3 miles from the crash site, and we walked in from there, and it was the most horrendous 3 miles I've ever walked/climbed, because it wasn't really a walk, it was a climb. And they had walked from the bottom of the mountain, which was 20-ish miles.
So how long did it take y'all to go that 3 miles, do you think?
All night.
Yeah.
It was, we were on all fours, crawling, sliding down the side of mountains. Like, we'd try to climb, and it was scree, so you just slide back down. Climb back up, slide back down. Because they were taking us through routes that they're like, there's no way another human's going to be here. Yeah. We can't lose any more guys, so we're sending you right here. No one can climb that, so you guys do it. Yeah.
with full kit,
with gear,
under night vision.
Yeah. So, like, what kind of gear did y'all have?
So we were wearing. Man, this is the worst part. We had one plate, ballistic plate. So we wore our front plate only. We had. I was carrying a litter, a Skedco, filled with water and body bags. Obviously as much ammo as we could possibly carry, because we actually were expecting Roberts Ridge 2.0.
Oh yeah.
So all of us brought, I think I carried 8 mags on that, which is more than you should when you're hiking.
Say that adds some weight pretty fast.
And I was carrying ammo for the Mark 48 in the Skedco bag, and some extra ammo for the 46 as well. So, I was probably carrying my body weight or close to it. Like I said, the most horrendous 3 miles of my life.
But getting down is the crazy part. When y'all came out of the back of the Chinook.
Yeah, so the rope in. I've done a lot of ropes. I've probably done a couple hundred, both in training and overseas. Mostly in training, but so they control it. They put you about 30 feet ish, and it's pretty flat ground. It's nice and easy. And we'd done that over and over and over. We'd done the towers. We've done some live ones actually in Afghanistan before, and they were doing a little higher, 50 feet, doing it in the sand, doing it on some terrain. So they made it hard for us. But this one was something totally different. Pitch black. There was no illume, so you have your nods. You're looking out. Really can't see anything. It was just basically pitch black. You're looking out, and we were above the treetops. I didn't know that was that significant in Afghanistan until I got to this part. But daytime arrived, and you look up, and it was like 100 feet. So what we did is we roped about, say, 90 to 100 feet. And you couldn't see how far it was. That was the worst part. So you're holding on to this rope, waiting to hit the ground, not able to see it. You normally have a chem light at the bottom so you can see where the ground is. You couldn't see it. So you're coming down this rope and you're just speeding up. And you can't slow it down. Your hands and feet on this rope, and you're just sliding and holding on for dear life. And it's heating up. You're speeding up. And next thing you know, you're in a pile of Rangers at the bottom. It was, I know a lot of guys that served 20 years, and they said that was the longest rope they ever did. And it wasn't even close. So, But that was the only place they could put us at the time that was far enough away that had some concealment. And it was a really awful spot. I mean, it wasn't flat. It was covered in rocks and fallen trees, actually. So it was a logging area. And I don't think anyone landed on their feet. The entire chalk, everyone was on the ground.
I couldn't imagine being the first guy to like, all right, here we go. And then you just like disappear into the abyss, into like unknown what you're going into.
Did that dude like have comms with the bird at all, the first guy out the door? Did he like, the ground is here?
I'm alive.
Or did they just say go, 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 and
normally
Rangers
they look down and then they give the signal to go, meaning they saw it. But I will tell you, the guy that was on the rope, because I was like, I would say third or fourth. I was looking at him because he was my squad leader. I was looking at him, and he looked down. He looked back at us. Never seen this look in his face. Not one time. It was that. What the hell is that? And then he went, so I'm like, all right, I guess we're going.
I guess we're doing this.
Yeah, and I asked him later, which, by the way, he's a very, very high level in the Ranger Regiment right now. I won't say his name, just because he's still active, but one of the best Rangers to walk the face of the earth, let's put it that way. And I would follow him into a burning building, into gunfight, which I've done over and over again. I do it to this day. He had that look like, oh shit. And I've never seen it ever again. And this is counting firefights and everything else. I'll never forget it because he looked like he had no clue what was going on.
He's like, what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah. And we joke about it now that none of us thought that it was going to be 100 feet. Not a single person had any clue. So it was pretty wild getting into that.
Yeah, the not knowing like where the end is probably the most makes it the worst because you're expecting at any time now and then it doesn't come and
yeah, I mean you spec 40 to 60 feet in combat, like somewhere in that range. Well, you hit 40 feet and you're just picking up speed, then you hit 50 and then you hit 60 and you're like still picking up speed. Like, why am I not hitting the ground? Like, is the rope even on the ground? Am I off a cliff?
Yeah,
like,
right.
We don't know.
Oh man.
Yeah, I don't even like jumping into water that I don't know where the bottom is. Like, okay, there's the bottom. You're really good. Like,
Well, I'll admit it. I'm like deathly afraid of heights. Like, I hate heights. I will not get on my roof. I'll get on the lowest part, like that's not too slanted. But you've seen the roofs in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
Those upper roofs? No. I'm not going up there.
Hey, falls kill a lot of people.
I am not
in the
going up
United
there.
States.
I am not going up there. I mean, I don't like standing in ledges where I can look over. Nope. But I'll jump out of airplanes. I can't explain it. I guess because I can't see. It doesn't make sense that everything's that little. So, I'll just go.
So y'all hit the ground. Took you up.
Make your way up the mountain.
Make your way up the mountain. Over to the crash site. What happens when you get on site?
Well, the first thing that happens is they park us probably 50 to 100 meters away, and we were looking, and you can see the like flames on the crash site. I mean, it would look like this little tiny, like little flickering flame, and you're like, that's still burning. That was about 48 hours ago. So it's kind of weird that there'd still be a fire there, and the first people on site were the PJs, and they went up there and they came back, and the way they were walking back, you knew it wasn't good. Like, they were walking super slow. They were like chatting back and forth, obviously like talking about how we're going to handle this. But then they come back, walk back to the unit. We're all pulled in security, and they basically said, there's nothing left. So it's a recovery at this point. We're like, what do you mean? You see all the guys over there? He's like, there's a few. But it was just there was nothing left. You couldn't even see a Chinook there.
Oh, wow.
There was nothing. I mean, you could see like parts of a rotor, one rotor, no hull at all, and then that little flame. So it was a little confusing for a new guy. I'm looking over there like, where's the helicopter? I see the rotor, but I don't see the rest of it. Like, is it in the woods?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. Like, maybe it slid off into the... I mean, it was on a hill. I mean, it was straight up and down, so I'm like, I don't know how that would happen, but is it up there somehow?
Is there any idea of how far it actually fell before it impacted?
No clue. Our guess is because, and I'll go into some details that I did talk about it in the book. They're very graphic, so if you're sensitive, I would say this would be a time to skip. But because of the way the bodies were placed and how no one was hooked in, because they were all spread out, I believe, and a lot of us believe, that they were getting ready to rope. So they were just hovering. And that's when they got hit and went into the spin and kind of spread everyone out.
Jeez.
But, yeah, so they weren't very high, in my opinion. So in theory, like once you got up there and saw all the spread of the bodies, you would say, unless they spread out to fight, which that's a possibility too, right? You could make a perimeter to fight. It's very likely that they were pretty close to the ground, unhooked, roping. Pretty wild.
Yeah.
Again, me being the brand new guy, this is my very first mission I'd ever been on. I didn't know what to expect. I thought maybe this is how war is like. You just see dead bodies all the time. And so I know it sounds weird, but like it didn't really shake me up at that point.
Yeah.
It wasn't until later that I realized, oh my God, I can't believe what I just saw, that it shook me up. But at the time, it was like I was so task and mission oriented that it was just war. Like that's what I thought that's what it was like. So not actually a good experience for your first mission, because war is not like that. Anyone who's ever been could tell you it's not always like that. And if it is, you're in bad shape. It's wild.
So once y'all started, we won't go into the details like you did in the book, or you didn't. I mean, you went into detail, but very respectful detail in the book.
Thank you for saying that, because that was one of the hardest parts to write.
Yeah.
I imagine. Yeah.
I wanted to, respectfully explain so that the reader, the families, the guys I served with would have an out. So like, this is what I experienced to my family, show this to their family, right? And so that the families knew that they went out as heroes. They went out respectfully, but still I wanted to be as honest as I could. So I appreciate you saying that, because when I was writing that, I can't tell how many times I deleted / left it out completely.
Yeah.
Thankfully, Bob Welch, who was my co-author, gave me a pep talk on how important it was to be authentic, and don't just leave it out because it makes you feel uncomfortable. Think about it from the families and your brothers and sisters that were out there with you, from their perspective. If they had to explain this to their family members, they need they need a basis. So again, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
You go into detail. So sorry if I'm confusing books that I've listened to or read, but you go into detail about a wedding ring, right? In this one.
Yeah,
So-
that was like the highlight of this entire thing, in my opinion. It was one of the special operations aviators had recently been married before he went on this mission. He was a very well-respected he's a well-respected aviator. He was well-respected baseball player at West Point. In fact, one of the best ever to play at West Point. By all accounts, he was a great guy, and we'd be all lucky to know him. And a lot of the guys knew him. So when we were on the ground, we had recovered all the bodies. We had recovered all of the gear that we could find. And someone, and I don't remember who it was exactly, said, hey, they were doing inventory of everything that was there. He doesn't have his wedding band. Now, again, this is a little explicit. And I'll tell you, pause it if you don't want to hear this, but his body was badly burned. So it was tough to find everything. But someone did note that he didn't have his wedding band. And he was recently married, and he would have it. He would 100% be wearing it. So basically leadership huddled up, and they said, no, he definitely had it. There's no doubt. So they brought us back, and they said, okay, we need you guys to find his wedding band. It's somewhere here. And keep in mind, this is a hull of ash. I mean, there's barely anything there. We're in a, 10 by 15 room?
Yeah.
And that's how big the Chinook felt. No walls, literally just ash. And some burning, like, pylons and things. But they had us on our hands and knees, kind of sifting through the ash, looking for a wedding band. And I'll be honest, we were down there looking. I'm like, we're never going to find this dang thing. I don't know why we're doing this.
Is this in the dark or in the light?
This is in the light,
okay.
Thankfully. I really wanted to find it. I was like motivated. I was on the ground searching. But in the back of my head, I'm like, we're never going to find this thing. Like, there's no way.
Yeah, it's like a needle in a haystack almost, you know?
But here's how smart some of those guys are. And I, being the new guy, didn't think of this. He's like, this is where he would have been in the bird. So he's somewhere around here. Like, he had to have been, he was probably clipped in because he was still there when we got here. So it's somewhere here. So we all kind of got around the area, and we were searching for probably an hour or so. At that point, we had stripped down our tops. We were in T-shirts. We took off all of our gear. We had laid it down. We had security outside of us. We were completely focused on that. And I was dehydrated, tired. It was starting to set in that, hey, we just suffered one of the worst losses ever in special operations history. In fact, at the time it was. And so it was a little depressing, and we're searching for this. And someone out of the, like, on the side here says, I got it. And everyone, like, stops. It was, like, dead silent. Kind of all look at him, and he holds it up, and he has this man's wedding band. And we're like instant, like, jubilation. All of us are high-fiving. Like, you could think of, like, someone just won the championship. That's what it felt like. Despite this horrible situation, we found a way to kind of come together. And
yeah, I mean, that's a huge win.
It was a huge win. It was the only win we had.
Yeah.
So it was good. And I found out later that it was when I was writing the book, I was writing that story, and I thought, I wonder if his spouse ever got the ring. Like, how in the heck am I going to approach this? Like, I don't want to be like, hey, so-and-so, did you by chance get a wedding ring from your dead spouse? Like, that's a tough situation. That's a tough conversation. So I found his widow on Facebook, of all places, just through searching and mutual friends, and found her. And I reached out to her. Very cryptic, kind of trying not to push the subject too hard, just to see where she was at, because I had no clue. Like, I didn't know if she was still devastated by it, had moved on, or what. And I just kind of mentioned that I was there when her husband passed. He was a great man. Just wanted to see how you were doing and check in on you. And also, after we went back and forth a little bit, she was very, very forthcoming, and you could tell she was upbeat. So I'm like, okay. Oh, by the way, did you ever get anything from us out there from that mission? And it was like, you know, the ...
Yeah.
Yeah,
like that popped up, and I'm like, oh, that was fast. She must be like right there. And then you can see the square pops up, and it's a photo. Can't see it yet. You're like, what the heck she's sending? And when it pops up, it's a picture of him. It's a hand-drawn picture. And there's a ring on her hand, just like this. Like she knew. That's what I was asking about. Again, I had that celebration moment. Like I'm in my living room.
Yeah.
During COVID. The world stopped, and I'm like, it was like probably 4:30 in the morning or something like that. Because that's when I would write. I would write before my kids would wake up. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I never thought that she would send that picture of her hand. But a pretty cool story, or side story inside the story, where our efforts overseas actually brought some joy to somebody.
Yeah.
So again, not a normal war story. And I was mentioning to you guys earlier, like, about not writing about war stories again. And the reason is because other war stories don't have these little side victories. Like, my other war stories are war. They're not that exciting. You could watch a movie, read 100 books about it. This is unique.
How long were y'all on station at the Chinook?
Oh, man. We were there for almost 2 days. But we were doing side, like, patrols looking for the SEALs at that point.
Okay. So they finally told y'all that the other unit was out there and they were ambushed.
Yeah, it was right after we had recovered the helicopter. They're like, oh, yeah, by the way, you guys you have a follow-up mission. You got to find this recon team. So they sent us out on patrols, like, right after we'd finished recovering. So we were out of water. We were out of water. All of us had been literally spent 10 hours recovering a helicopter, 16 bodies into body bags, carried them up a mountain, put them in an HLZ. So we were pretty spent. But it was kind of renewed energy when they said, hey, these guys are still out there. So they had us walking all over the place. And every time we'd go out, and we get to a point where they're like, yeah, you guys are getting pretty far away. Why don't you come back? So we'd hike back up. We were just going back and forth, right? Every time, no sign. We'd find nothing. We traced their path that they went. It's like, these guys are ghosts. There's nothing out here. Yeah, it was pretty mind-numbing, really, because you're like waiting for that victory, and it never comes. It's like it's always there, but you can never touch it.
And you were in the exact terrain where the ambush occurred, right?
Yeah, we literally tracked their movement and walked the exact path they walked. And I will tell you, there is no unit in the world that could get through that terrain with a properly positioned enemy and get out alive. No way. No how. Bunkers from the Soviets were still there. You would walk, I mentioned one. I literally walked right past it, turned around to look at the guy behind me, and I could see where the machine gun comes out of the bunker. I'm like, oh, dang.
Yeah.
They would have lit us up if they were in there. Completely concealed. The terrain is perfect to defend. It's like the perfect. If you could pick a location for your homestead, it's there.
Yeah.
Like, no one's ever going to be able to get you. So, gosh, it was just devastating because you're walking through this stuff and you're like, there's no way they got out of this. I don't care how good of fighters they are.
It's crazy to think about, too, like, the Soviets in Afghanistan, like, them getting the stuff there to make bunkers or making bunkers in that terrain or...
Yeah, bringing it all the way up the mountain.
Yeah. Is like, that's a whole nother thing, too.
You've been to Afghanistan, right?
No.
No?
No, just all my time was in Iraq.
So I will tell you that the locals, the Afghanis, they've been doing this for so long. They know how to fight.
Yeah.
So you would watch a teenage kid. In fact, in prior deployments, Rangers used to hire like teenagers to carry like a 50 cal machine gun up the mountain. Like we're handing a 50 cal machine gun to a 13-year-old. He's putting it on his back and he's running up the mountain.
Yeah, just leaving y'all behind. Like,
Yeah.
Well, it's like the Sherpas in
that's what
Everest, like same kind of thing, where they're just so used to doing it and just built for
10,000 feet, they've lived at it their whole life.
Yeah.
Not for 8 to 12 weeks.
it. Yeah.
Right.
You know.
And I mean, they're not big people, but yeah, they know how to fight.
Yeah. They've been doing it for a couple thousand years.
Yeah. So it didn't surprise me that all that stuff was up there. Like they get up and down those mountains way faster than we do.
Oh yeah.
And that was the only thing that was scary about Afghanistan was it's their home field. Like they were up 10,000 feet dying and they are looking at us like, really, you fat Americans? That's all you got? And they did that for 20 years until we left and then just said, okay, thanks.
Yeah, they did. We gave them. It's a whole nother's.
Yeah.
Whole nother podcast.
We could do another podcast on that.
Yeah.
So you started writing the book during COVID. How long did it take from the time you were like, I'm gonna do this thing? How long did it take to actually compile everything, do all the interviews and all that kind of stuff?
So, long story short, I had started like the process of like compiling the information about 6 months prior to COVID. Working with publishers, and anyone who's ever worked in the publishing industry will tell you it is slow. So I got a book deal. It wasn't signed until January of 2020. But the process to get the book deal, I had already compiled, done the interviews. I hadn't written yet. I was waiting to get the book deal to write it. So once I got the book deal in January, they're like, we want it in March. Like, oh, okay. So I literally wrote this book in like 65 days.
Wow.
And it wasn't easy. I would never recommend anybody do that. It just so worked out that, thank goodness, the only reason it happened is because of Bob Welch. Like he held my hand the whole way. He's like, every day you have to write. Every day. Yeah, every day from about 4 to 7 was my writing time. My kids were up 6:30 to 7, so I can't write anymore. And then I would write in my lunch breaks in my clinic. And I struggled mightily in that process, but Bob really, he would read something and be like, yeah, it's a good start, but yeah, that's trash. He goes, no one wants to hear that. No one wants to hear that stuff. They want to hear about this. That one sentence that you wrote, make that into the story. They don't care about that. Like, no, but that's what happened. Like, I don't talk about this over here. So it was quite the process.
And how did you get linked up with Bob?
Through my literary agent. That's a whole nother podcast as well. If anyone wants to write a book, please reach out, because I can kind of tell you how not to do it / give you some direction, because it's probably the weirdest industry I've ever been a part of, as far as the gatekeeper after gatekeeper after gatekeeper to put out a book.
Yeah.
I mean, there's self-publishing route, but I didn't want to go that route because I wasn't doing it for income. I was doing it so that it'd be preserved for my children. So I thought the best way to do this is traditional publishing, because it's all going to get done. I just have to focus on writing.
That's the cool thing too. Like I feel it seems like there's a lot. You mentioned like your grandfather not really talking about the Korean War. It seems like that a lot of that history is lost. Like one of the like WW2. Like there's there's only a few left.
Oh, there's not very many veterans left from
like
World War II.
If any, probably count them on one hand. But it's nice, being able to preserve some of that. not only for your children, but like for other people down the road, being able to have, something to look back on and, preserving that history and stuff that happened.
Yeah, that was kind of why I did it. I felt like the guys that I were with, a lot of them, and this is my opinion, but I interviewed a lot of these guys, and in my opinion, a lot of them felt like they'd been shortchanged because of the movie and all the fame around it, and they're like, they didn't even mention what we did out there. And I never really cared what people thought about that. I was like, I knew I was there, and that was enough for me. But I do know that there were some that they always felt like what they did wasn't important. And now that the book is out, it gave them a renewed sense of like, yeah, I did something good in the world. And to me, that was huge to see my buddies that have been holding on to this for so long, and their family didn't even know that they were there.
Yeah.
Now they're having conversations with their dad about, I had no idea. Like,
because in the story during the recovery, y'all didn't come into contact, right? Because I know, like you mentioned, like that they called in CAS for y'all.
Yep.
At one point,
there was some contact on the far end of our blocking position, but it wasn't most of us. It was like 2 or 3 guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was, a lot of us were, we were completely de-kitted. We didn't have anything on. We were just crawling around on the ground. So it's different. It's not traditional war.
And then did your platoon or did your squad, where you were there with a platoon size element, right?
Yep, platoon.
Did y'all get cut off to go when they ID'd that Marcus was there at the location? Did y'all get pushed out there and secure that, or did somebody else?
Yeah, so there was actually 2 platoons. So it was a company minus out there, and my platoon was recovery / crash site management with one. It was like a 2 squad element that would go out and do patrols looking for the SEALs. So when we found that he might be in a location, we went one way, and then the other platoon element that wasn't at the crash site also went another way, and that's who ultimately recovered Marcus. But we had gone to another village nearby that we thought maybe he was at based on assets, and it turned out to be dry hole. So we got there and there was nothing. It was actually a site that they had JDAM'd, thinking that original Ahmad Shah was there, and we got to the JDAM and it was worthless.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were all chasing Marcus because we didn't know exactly where he was, and we didn't really trust the source to give us great information. So we were covering our bases.
Who recovered their bodies? The 3 SEALs with him that passed away.
So that was that other element.
Okay.
They did recover one, and then when we were at that point, after Marcus was recovered, we knew that everyone else was dead. So the mission really shifted. Another element from the 75th Ranger Regiment actually had pushed in from Georgia. While this started, they pushed out of Georgia to early to recover and take over because we were actually scheduled to leave country, and we had to stay extra because it was right at the transition period. So they came out early and met us out on the mountain and took over the recovery effort, and they found the last 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how long were y'all out on that mission total?
9 days from what we can figure out, because it is muddy. When you do these operations for years and then you decide to go back and recount it, you'd hear some stories that like, are you sure that was the same mission?
Yeah.
And given how much combat some of these guys have been in, they confuse some of their missions with others, and but based on timelines and some manifests that I was able to get, 9 days. 9 days, and I think I had half an MRE that entire time.
Wow.
So you were ready for Ranger School when you got back?
I had lost, there's a picture in my book of it, but I had lost about 15 pounds in 9 days.
Yeah. Wow.
All of us were like, it looked like we had been drowned rats. Like all of us were like not fitting in our uniforms.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was ready. I mean, it's funny because when I got to Ranger School, they were saying, when you get to combat, you're going to have to go without food all the time. We're like,
Just did.
I mean, yeah, I think you're right.
So you went to Ranger School, and then how much longer did you stay in the regiment for?
It was another year and a half.
Okay. Did you go back to Afghanistan?
Went to Iraq next.
Okay.
How long were you there, and when was that?
Iraq was 2007 and 8.
Okay.
We were there for approximately 100 days.
Okay. Where were you? Ramadi?
Beautiful Ramadi.
Nice.
It's like a resort
Palm trees.
Yeah.
in hell.
Yeah.
A resort covered in V-bids.
Yeah.
Now
'Cause
that-
y'all came in to plush up for the surge, right? What was it?
That was the end of the Battle of
Battle,
Ramadi.
okay.
Yeah. So it was, we were out 2, 3, 4 missions a night. Almost every single night we were there. Busy. We had some fun out there though. Thankfully, everyone came home. I actually had no casualties, no injuries. It was wonderful. It's like a perfect deployment.
It's a good way to end the career.
Yeah, I was actually, right when I got out of the military, my platoon sergeant had asked me to do one more trip, which means I have to extend for a couple months. And this one still eats at me because he ended up getting killed on the next deployment. And he was a great guy. Sergeant First Class McDowell. Probably one of the best Rangers that most people had ever encountered. Great guy. Just a great human, really. When I was getting out, he tried everything to keep me to stay in. He promoted me to E5 and said, hey, I'm giving you a team. I want you to stay. And I said, I'm going to be honest. And again, I regret this part too. I said, I'm getting out. Like, send someone else to the board. Selfless at the time, but it didn't really change anything. The guy that got to the board would have been to the board next anyway.
Yeah.
But at the time, it felt like the right thing to do. I was just already checked out, so it had no purpose for me.
Yeah, I ended up having to talk with, having to sit down and talk to the brigade sergeant major and post sergeant major on why I wasn't putting in my E7 paperwork. Like, I'm out, I'm done. I don't want to, but you can do, no, because you're going to get me for another 2 years before you promote me. I don't want it. I want to get out. Okay.
Yeah.
So speaking of getting out, what'd you do after? You went back to school?
I was a lost soul. I went back to school, but I went to University of Southern California. Actually, long story, but I went down to Southern California expecting to get into USC because I'd already been accepted before. And they said, this pisses me off to this day. They said, oh, you've been out of school for 4 years, so we want you to prove that you can do it. I wanted to burn that mother effer to the ground. Like,
Jeez.
yeah, I took 4 years off to fight. Doesn't mean that, like, do you think I got dumb? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, do you think I got stupider or more stupid?
Basically, that's what they were saying, right? That's exactly what
even
they're
more
saying.
dumber.
So I went to College of the Canyons in Santa Clarita for 1 year. Got a 4.0. Absolutely crushed it because I was
Yeah.
pissed.
Yeah, like,
And then I
reapplied.
reapplied, and they're like, oh, see, well, that worked out. Like,
Yeah, it was already there. It was just proof of what was already there. It wasn't.
yeah.
Was it just that counselor, or did you talk to multiple people?
I talked to multiple people. I think it was just standard. Like, if they've been out of school for so long, it had nothing to do with the military. But
Yeah.
I had a chip on my shoulder for sure.
I ended up when I got out in 2013. It was kind of like the same thing. I went in, going into Lone Star, and I wasn't really asking questions. I was just wanting to get in, get everything squared away. And they're like, "Oh, you've got to take this like college success course." I'm like, "Okay, whatever." And like day 2 in it, I'm like, I'm not going to make it through this class, like, because it was just like the ridiculous stuff.
This is how you brush your teeth.
Yeah, basically, I'm like, oh, no. And like 4 weeks into it, I went in and like talked to somebody else, and they're like, "Oh no, you're prior service. You don't. Who told you had to take this class?"
Geez.
And I'm like, "This lady did it in room B13 on this floor. This lady told me I had to take this class." And they're like, "No, but you've got to finish it now because you can't drop it."
Oh, then
right?
you fail it.
Yeah, you got to finish it. I was so mad every day going into that class because it wasted my time. But I got a lesson really, really quick to not trust
But
the college.
verify, right?
Yeah,
The
not
lady
trust
B13.
yeah, don't trust the college counselor. Go in, do your research on your own, and figure out, because I'm not saying all of them do this, and it might just be my disgruntled conspiracy ass thinking of it, but it feels like they want you to take as many classes and spend as much
probably.
money as possible, even in a good school. I loved Lone Star.
Yeah.
Highly recommend it. But that's the way.
Yeah, it was an experience. The good news is it all ended well. Got into USC, used my yellow ribbon program, which was amazing. If you are familiar with that, look it up. But it's for private institutions. And then USC gave me a bunch of scholarships to where I paid $0 to go to University of Southern California, which normally would cost a boatload of money. I would have a mortgage.
Yeah.
So they made up for it. Just pissed me off along the way. But long story short, they also kind of forced me into my current profession. Because that year that I was at community college, my back was just miserable. I was having pains in the legs, numbness in the feet. And my wife made me go to a chiropractor. I didn't want to go. I tried not to go. I tried to say, they're not real doctors. They're quacks. I had it all. I mean, this is what I truly believed at the time. And so I went in very skeptical, didn't trust the guy at all. And he helped me. At the end of the day, he helped me. And I said, you know what? I want to be that guy. Like, he's an underdog. He's helping people. I want to do that. That's me. And that's what I do to this day. So, like I said, it all worked out.
And how'd you get you want to talk about getting from Seattle to Texas?
That's another podcast.
That's a whole nother episode.
We got 5 new episodes.
Yeah,
lined
we're
up.
good. We're good.
Yeah. So I was practicing in Redmond, Washington, which is just outside Seattle, headquarters of Microsoft.
And B.E. Myers.
Yep. Yes, that's true. I actually know them. And yeah, so Redmond, Washington, practicing there since 2015. I started to practice there. 2020 hits, and that place went absolutely insane. Everyone lost their minds.
Didn't they have or maybe that was Oregon, but there was basically a system where you could report businesses that were still
that was
open?
Washington.
Yeah. It was here, go tattle on your neighbor for
They had a
trying to feed
tattle line.
themselves.
Thankfully, I didn't have too many people tattling, but I did have a few because my mask slid down, which, first of all, I wouldn't have worn a mask if I wasn't required to. They threatened your license and everything else, so it's whatever, I'm going to wear this cloth mask that's not doing anything. And I wore it, and I'm adjusting people, right? I'm touching them. I'm adjusting them. I'm right next to them. And the mask slipped down, and someone complained. Whatever. No big deal. But it was wearing on me, all these little things. I told my wife, I said, I feel like I'm on a deployment. This is not America. I am miserable here. And she's like, me too. Let's move. It's all right, where are we going? Idaho? Montana? Because we didn't want to go too far.
Yeah.
And I said, how about we go to Texas, where I wanted to go to begin with, because those people don't stand for shit. I mean, they don't take shit. They stand for a lot. They stand for freedom, right? You got to edit that.
Yeah.
They stand for, individual liberties, freedom. Don't mess with Texas, right? So we started looking at different areas that we wanted to come, and I picked a weekend, and I flew out, and I went to San Antonio one weekend, I went to Houston one weekend, and I went to Dallas another. I want to be around there somewhere. And I have family here in Montgomery County, and they said, come stay with us. We'll show you around. You're going to want to move here anyway. Don't even, just cancel the rest of them. I did. I went to all of them, but when I came here, it felt like home. Like, most people don't realize that Texas has trees. I didn't. I'm like, oh, there's trees in Texas. There's water and like rolling hills. Like, oh, never seen that in Texas. And then having family here, I knew I was home when everywhere I'd go, I would see veterans. I've never been anywhere in the country where literally there are veterans everywhere. So we sold the clinic. I moved my family out here about 8 months before I sold it.
Oh, wow.
And I was commuting back and forth, which was horrible
Yeah,
idea, but I wanted to get them out of there. And when I moved here, I had to plan to take a year off because we had just sold the clinic. So we had some cash. And I think 2 months in, I'm like, okay, I got to work. I can't do nothing. And so I started a clinic right here in Conroe, Freedom Chiropractic. And the rest is history. We treat lots of veterans, first responders. Absolutely love it here.
How long have you been here now?
We got here, well, my family got here in the summer of 21. And I finally was here in March of 22.
And so your practice has been up and running for almost 2 years or almost 3?
June of 2022.
Okay, congratulations.
Yeah, it's going great. We love it. Love my patients. They're all like-minded people, so that helps too. Seattle, they were not.
Yeah.
In fact, that's one of the things in Seattle was my patients were coming in and talking really, really nasty about other political spectrum, like the opposite of them. They had no idea that they were just telling me how awful a person I was right to my face. And I just took it because I cared about them and I want them to get better and I didn't want that to be. And eventually I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. That's why I ended up here. So long story, but I think if it teaches anyone anything, like, go find your people. Like, if you're miserable or you're having to put on a front all the time, that is not living. And I love it here because I don't have to hide anything. I can just be honest with everybody. And most people actually agree with me, so it makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, for sure.
Nice.
You got any more questions for our...
No, I think that's...
I got nothing. I got a book to read.
You got a book
Yeah.
to read?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good book.
I have it. I haven't read it yet. I need to.
I listened to it. So does that count?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that count?
Actually, I thought the narration was pretty good. It wasn't me, but the guy who did it did a pretty good job. Other than a couple of words that I would have corrected if I had the chance to.
Yeah, it was good. It was definitely a
good.
good listen. And the funny part is, like, me and you ended up, I would like messages like, how do you know this? How do you know these two dudes, right? And we started talking back on Facebook because we're in the same our neighborhood Facebook group, which is all about anti-HOA at this
love
point. That's all it is. And your kids are driving too fast, or they were riding their scooter on the sidewalk that they're not supposed to be riding. Anyway.
Yeah.
So we started messaging, and then we tried to get this together last year before the anniversary of Operation Red Wings. Weren't able to, and then we ended up on Veterans Day doing this, or Veterans
Memorial
Day weekend. Was it Memorial Day?
Yeah, Memorial Day.
Memorial Day, doing a 6-mile road march together. And I looked at you at one point. I'm like, man, that guy kind of looks familiar. I think I. And he looked at me, and you're kind of like. But we're not going to talk to each other. And we get done, and we're like tagging and posting in the neighborhood group. And
It's like, that was you?
Yeah, that was you. I was like, oh, okay. You had the dog? Like, yeah, you had that? Okay, cool. Didn't even talk to each other. So I'm glad that we made the time to.
To be fair, I was so tired that I wasn't talking to anyone because I was secretly sucking.
Oh, that started my whole transformation.
I know it did. It's awesome. I love watching it, by the way.
That, like, I got done. And I've never finished a road march and not been able to walk. Like, I got in my truck and threw my backpack in the truck, got in my truck, and like hobbled into the house, and like had trouble taking my shoes off. And it was 6 miles with 45 pounds. Like,
it wasn't bad.
And it wasn't
was flat.
It wasn't fast, but I hadn't done it in a long time. Right.
I agree.
And my feet, and I'm like, I have to stop, or else I'm going to be a lot worse as I get older. And that was the driving force behind my little.
Yeah, I will admit that I was hurting more than I should have, and I felt joints I haven't felt in a long time. Like, I've never done a ruck march where I thought my ankles were hurting, but my ankles were killing me after that.
And my feet were done. Like, my feet, I could not walk for a good 3 or 4 hours. I was hobbling around. I'm not moving. Like, it was bad trying to roll out my feet with the roller. It was bad. But anyway, I'm glad that we finally got to sit down and talk.
Yes.
We'll have to do it again more frequently. If you've enjoyed our Veterans Day post, please leave a comment. There'll be links to his book where you can find it, where you can download it. I'll link the Freedom Chiropractic, correct?
FreedomChiropractor.com.
Okay. It'll be in the link, so if you're in the Conroe area and in need of adjustment, he was definitely I know somebody else is going to listen to this, so
yep.
He's definitely the number 2 chiropractor I want to recommend. Sorry.
It's okay.
At this point.
I know how loyal patients are, and I respect that.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of good chiropractors in the area, so.
Very good catch. But all the links are down below in the description on the blog post. Watch us on YouTube, both of the channels. Please like, subscribe. Watch us on Rumble, Spotify, Amazon, everything.
Just have them all playing at the same time.
Just have them all playing at the same time. We really appreciate you, and thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Adios.
Yeah.
Change your socks, drink water, and go see your chiropractor.
There we go.
Yeah. And call your buddy. Buddy check.
Yes.
Thank you.